on the move. Little dance step was good. Couple of bounces. Can take it himself and launch long. Inspirational.
Time ticking away. Stop it. For Silvani. What about that?
Mackay. Two in a minute. And they are dancing now, the Blues.
Almost Mackay. Walsh, here he is. Straightens up and has delivered. Is there nothing this young man can't do?
Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and it's a bit of a somber mood. I normally try to get up and about for the start of these podcasts, but I just can't do it this week. And look, it's been a few days now. We've both given each other a bit of time to process everything before jumping on and recording. So Lockie, mate, I've got to ask, how are you doing? How are you going? And I guess, how have you dealt with everything post-Sunday?
Oh, it's good to be here, mate. We have given it a few days. Can't say my outlook on it all has changed a whole lot. I'm definitely not going to be my optimistic self on today's episode. It's been hard to digest it, especially considering the position that we're in during the game. But, I think, it's too early to kind of make the big kind of season review calls, like successful season, all that stuff. We'll get to that at some stage. But right now, just hurts that we're not going to be there in a couple of weeks.
100%. Like, I know for myself, it was weird. It's one of the weirdest reactions I think I've had to a game of football where, and we'll obviously get into everything, but checking my phone, I knew how long there was left to go in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it wasn't long enough for us to score and win. So it was just me just waiting for that final siren to go. And then basically as soon as it went, stood up, looked at my girlfriend and said, let's get out of here because I don't want to be here. Don't want to be around Collingwood supporters. Let's just get out and go. And pretty much for the whole walk back to the car, I didn't feel angry, sad, annoyed. It was just nothing. And it wasn't like this emptiness, depressed nothing. It was genuinely no emotion. It wasn't a happy, wasn't a sad. It was this weird feeling where all I could say was, well, what can you do? And, I just kept walking to the car. I thought like for some reason, it just hadn't fazed me. And I'd somehow gotten away from all this emotion. And then it was probably when I got home, it all just hit me. The whole feeling of everything that had just transpired, our season collapsing, no finals. I just laid on the floor. And then Monday was the same. Tuesday felt a little bit better. And I guess Wednesday, here we are. I think time's probably going to be one of the only things that heals this. And it's strange. I thought last week was probably the most heartbreaking loss we've had since probably the 2011 semi-final against West Coast.
Oh, gosh.
I think this one's topped both somehow. I guess we got to get talking to the main parts of this. Look, to be 4 goals up going into the last quarter, lose by a point, miss finals against Collingwood. Like, genuinely, what can you say? I've tried to write like run sheets galore. I don't know what to say for the first time, and I know I speak a lot, and this podcast will still find a way to go for about 7 hours, but I genuinely am still pretty lost for words. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to talk about. So hopefully, look, this episode here allows us both to vent, and hopefully it adds as a bit of therapy to sort of heal the hurt that I know we're feeling, and I know all the listeners are definitely feeling. I'd have at least one question to jump off into, Lockie, which is 2 weeks in a row, we've now put ourselves into winnable positions, almost unlosable positions, and managed to then lose. Subsequently, we've missed finals. I guess, what do you make of it? Because the big question that we may as well lead off with is, can we learn from it? Or is it going to make us, or is it going to break us, this loss?
Yeah, well, you have to say that it will make us, of course. That's not who we are. We can't take that glum approach, I think. I think the first thing that I kind of thought about when I was reflecting about it was, yes, we lost these 2 close games against 2 teams that could potentially be in the grand final. And it's not always the thing that people want to hear. Like, we should be competitive with everyone. Yes. But we were sitting here a month ago after that Adelaide game, just absolutely disgusted with what we saw. And we've seen that at least turn around in some regard, where we were seconds away 2 weeks in a row from wins.
Mm.
And then I think back to what you've referred to a few times this season and what Port Adelaide did to us 12 months ago to the day to where we are now. But essentially playing the closest thing that we could to finals. That atmosphere, I'm sure you would agree that was the most finals-like non-finals game that I've ever been at. So I take a positive there, but in terms of losing the leads, I mean, that was like the big theme when we started this show. Carlton were just constantly losing these leads all the time, and then we seem to get away from that. And then there's these two, but I mean, the fourth quarter doesn't feel real to me. It feels like a dream. Like I like people were like, "Oh, I think we've done enough. We've done enough." When we had that lead, and it's like, yeah, and then you just watch it go away.
Oh, it was interesting. I know at 3/4 time, I turned to the guys that normally sit next to, and both of us were still nervous. We were like, we're so close. But I think both of us literally said, we still need one more. Kick the first one, it's done. Until we do that, and this is the annoying thing, it feels kind of inevitable with this group. And I know that's what we normally do as fans. Like, we're the ones that shit ourselves because we're nervous, and from history and everything that we've seen us bottle it before. We've seen us not get over the line. And even this season, we'd be nervous until the final siren's gone in a lot of games. But you hope the guys out there aren't, because they shouldn't be. And then for it to happen and play out again 2 weeks in a row, if you want to find that little positive, it's that we had at least come out and fought hard, but it's not good enough at the end of the day. We need wins. We need to be playing finals. We need to put ourselves in a position. And I guess, as you alluded to, we'll get into the really big season chats in our season review. But it's just, I mean, this is the thing. I genuinely don't know what words to say about this game, because what have we done to be able to, there's kind of two ways you can look at it. You can say, okay, to be able to put ourselves into pretty much unlosable positions 2 weeks in a row, one against the reigning premiers, another top team, finals contender, and then against another top 8 team that now, because we lost, is a top 4 team, shows that there's something in this group. To have struggled in that first quarter, grinded out the second, have one of the best third quarters I've ever seen, pretty much almost put the game to bed, shows that there's something in this group, something incredible that we haven't seen in a long time. But then on the flip side, to be in those unlosable positions, 11 points up, 2 minutes to go, lose that game, 4 goals up, 3/4 time, still up with a minute to go, lose that game. You can look at the positives, but there's just glaring and more horrendous negatives with this group and what's going on. So I guess I've got to ask a follow-up to that, which is probably what everyone wants to know the answers to. Not expecting you to have them, but why are we unable to win these games? And I guess deal with the high-pressure moments, Lockie.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, and my recall of this is going to be poor because, like we said, I've completely repressed this game. But the thing that struck me in the last 5 or 10 minutes was kind of I don't really subscribe to the fact that the whole group aren't clutch, for want of a better word. We're, as a group, we're not mature enough yet, because I think some guys are. But I felt like there was kind of inexplicable moments in that last 5 minutes where it's you can pinpoint them, and we don't want to attack just single people, but it's why did he make that decision? Yeah. And if he didn't make that, I think we would have won. And I reckon you could find 5 to 10 of those in the last 5 minutes where it's I think if that didn't happen, we would have won. And we can talk about them specifically if you remember them, but that's the part for me. It's it is insane how close we were winning to this. It's insane how close we were to winning it. And it's just these minor little tweaks that I feel until we're there. And that's why I'm optimistic that it's just going to come with experience of being in those situations and not being in those high pressure times. One that comes to mind was Dirts had the ball outside 50. Oh, it's the one that really, really got me. He had these options short, and I was like, why kick it there? And I don't know if there's something that he was thinking that I just can't think of, but it just seemed inexplicable. And he's young and we love him, and he's going to be great. But I think we would have won if he didn't do that, because we could have controlled the ball. You know, never know, but it just felt like these little moments.
And I guess the hard thing that I'm wrestling with is, and I know I'm normally super positive, but I thought we'd learn from last week. But the big thing was, okay, it's happened. Let's learn from it, because you can fail and that's okay. You just have to make sure next time you nail it. And we didn't this week, and it was almost worse because we're up by so much more. And so I guess the crumble of it felt so much worse. But yeah, like that. And again, I'm not trying to single out Durden because there's so many different players. There was we missed out on finals by like 0.4 or 6%, whatever it was. Like there's fine margins throughout the whole season. You could pinpoint any single moment in any game and say, if we scored an extra goal in the Hawthorn game, in the Port Adelaide game, whatever, we don't concede an extra goal in one of our losses. You could literally go through every single game this season if you wanted to. And I know like this game, those last 2 minutes, like the Melbourne game, they just keep replaying in my head of what could have been. You've absolutely nailed it with like any single little moment goes on. We change one thing. Can we win that game? And it's tough. That Durden one, it's one you highlight because I think it sums up what all the others were, which was just a little bit of lacking game sense for whatever reason.
Yeah,
that is. Like, did no one in this team realize that we didn't actually need to win the game? We just needed a draw.
That's how it felt.
Because I know that the massive thing that everyone's been saying, I thought the same thing, was we kept, even though we had a couple of options short, like I know Harry at the last second got out and was leading up to the ball. Durden obviously just didn't lower his eyes. He'd already looked at where he was going to hit it. But why isn't every single player in this team going, okay, everyone sprint to that goal square, bloody torp the thing, I don't give a shit, and punch it through. And then we get the point. Yeah. I don't understand how we don't have, and leaders will probably get brought up as like the key thing, why no one just had that game IQ of either hold the ball or just get a point. Like whatever you need to do, it's just so frustrating, these little things that we just don't seem to be smart enough to do. I don't know what you make of it, Lockie.
Yeah, I felt, the game sense is the right word. And just the composure and lack of it that we have at these times. Well, at halftime, that was kind of the word that came to mind. It was like, we just have no composure in any aspect of this game right now. And I was almost writing us off with how that first half kind of played out. I was like, God, I just don't see any way that we turn this around from here. And that's what it felt like at the end. It's like, why is no one is calm right now? Even when we had like the solid lead, and that's not to say we need to be relaxed, but like, and it was the same. It was the same in the Melbourne game, like frantic.
Yeah.
Why are we rushing? Why do you play on and snap a shot on goal instead of just taking the 30 seconds? I understand that's how you get your mojo, but 30 seconds is a long time in these games. Take every second.
And particularly because like we're not the ones chasing the lead at some of these stages. So like Collingwood should be the ones that are frantic, stressing out because they're going, shit, we need to win this. We need to throw everything at them. We should be going, yeah, you do. So we're just going to sit back and relax. Like we don't need to be the ones that are panicking because we're in front. But it's for whatever reason, it just feels it's because we kicked. Let me find the stat. I'm pretty sure we kicked 6 behinds in that last quarter.
I think that's
6
right.
behinds.
0-6.
Collingwood kicked 5 goals, 1. That is incredibly efficient from them. They took their chances. We didn't. And that Charlie one was bad, particularly when, and I haven't seen the replay back. Never going to watch the replay back. You can burn the tapes at Channel 7. I don't care what you do with that game. It's disappearing from my memory. But I think it was the second quarter. He did the same thing where he does the snap and it doesn't even go the distance. And I noticed because it was down my end. And again, I have no issue with him doing the snap because it's worked all year. He's won a Coleman medal with it. Harry won a Coleman medal with it last year. That's not the issue. The snap is not the problem. It's the lack of composure with it that is. And he could have gone for a set shot, and I think there would have been the same issue. Doesn't matter how he tries to kick it. there was something wrong mentally with him there because he had the ball. This is the second quarter one. He looks at it, perfect, looks at the goal. Then all of a sudden, he sort of like stopped, looked to the like behind him, and then grabs it and then just goes. And I was like, okay, why have you like looked behind you where there's like to the boundary?
Yeah.
And then not taken that extra couple of seconds and gone. He sort of did the same thing. And immediately when he like missed that shot, I've gone, I think he's just like nervous. Like I can see him being a bit rattled.
Yeah.
That's the disappointment part because him and so many others on this team, you think that they're built for these big moments. Like Paddy Cripps is probably the big positive in this of how much he stepped up to the plate. But yeah, I guess Charlie Curnow is one that'll get singled out because of his poor goal kicking in this game and last week. But it's something across the whole squad. It's really this mentality issue that's been there all year. And that's kind of what this game was. It was everything that we've had this year. It was a slow start. It was lacking composure. It was one of the best quarters of footy you'll see. Then an absolute capitulation. If you could sum up the season into a game of football, it's this one, which is so frustrating. You think they can be better than this. And I guess, I genuinely don't know where to go because you mentioned that first quarter. Like they were panicked to start with, and we didn't kick a goal in the first quarter. Did you think that was just, again, this mentality issue of us failing to sort of handle the moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It's really we talked about this last week in a kind of bit more of a positive light. I still just don't understand how like the intensity and pressure level that we apply changes so much week to week. Like we said it, like if we brought the energy that we did in that Melbourne game every week this season,
you win 99% of them.
We'd be unbeatable. And it's like we didn't come in with that energy in this game. So I was like, where is it in this first quarter? And it was a shame to have Walshy as a laid out, but it meant others could step up. But we just felt so out of sorts.
And that's what you kind of think it is. Like your first instance is when they're flat, when Collingwood, particularly in their midfield, the pressure was hot. They were killing us on the spread. I know my first thought was, I think that Walshy injury is just hurting us a little too much. It's the second week in a row. We've had 3 of our 5 best midfielders out. Just changed the order with Chera coming in for Walsh.
Yeah.
But it was everything. It was first quarter. I hate to single him out again because he's had such a good season, but ball comes into the forward line. It's out the back. Charlie has it. All he has to do is grab the ball and kick a goal.
Why?
He panics and kicks it out of the air. It's a point and constant panic dump kicking from every single player, particularly the midfield. We'd get it, and it was just on the foot forward, not looking, just, I don't want it. I don't want to deal with this. And honestly, we were lucky to still win the game at quarter time. Collingwood missed so many chances.
Oh, yeah.
And then I thought second quarter, we kind of grinded things out a little bit more. And then it leads you to that third quarter where all of a sudden we were electric. The pressure was unreal. It was unrelenting. And that's what stifled Collingwood. They didn't get half a second before someone was coming in with not just a flimsy tackle, but it was I'm bearing you into the ground kind of thing. And there was so much of that. And then again, it drops off in the last. And you're just thinking, why are we so unable to hold this for long periods of the game? Because it's another game, this Collingwood one, where we really only played for one quarter of footy. And at the end of the day, you just can't expect to win games of football when you play for one quarter. It's just not going to happen for you.
Yeah, I do not have the answers as to where that difference is, and I don't think anybody does. But I guess that's you can flip that around and call that a positive, because the fact that we can that third quarter is our best footy is good. And then I think the fact that guys like Charlie, like, what's the biggest game that Charlie's played in apart from these last 2 weeks? And that's not an excuse for him, but it's like surely he can only get better in handling those situations.
Look, you hope so. I think that because it's happened 2 weeks in a row, that's what worries me. And because it's happened all year, it doesn't feel like we've learned from struggling under pressure. And that's why I'm still so negative on this. And the positive part in me wants to think that, yes, they're going to use this. They're going to use the hurt, that they've been in this situation. Like you mentioned, 99% of this group haven't played finals. They haven't been in these high pressure situations.
Yeah.
But they all have still made the same mistakes in what I'd probably perceive as like 5 or 6 out of 10 pressure this season than what they did in this 10 out of 10 pressure. You got the Doherty on the full.
Sure.
How many times does he do that when the heat's on? I think back to the Fremantle game that we luckily win with Jack Nunes, but last roll of the dice, he kicks on the full, and he keeps. So many of our players do this. They make the same mistakes under pressure, and it doesn't feel like we're learning from it. And yeah, the positive thinks, okay, they have to, because they're in this situation now. They can have 6 months to reflect on it. The coaches will be on it, and we'll learn. But there's no guarantees that just because you're in that situation that you will get better from it. And that's what's worrying me. I thought that this would finally be the time we make finals. Didn't happen. There's now no guarantee next year that you make finals. There's no guarantees in anything. And yeah, this game still hurts me, and I'm still incredibly negative on it, which just absolutely sucks.
Yeah. No. Of course, I'm the same. God, whenever we talk about it, though, it's so hard for me not to try and pick out the positives. It's so hard. It's just my default. But yeah.
Well,
I mean, the next thing, just to say, because I think it needs to be said, we would look so different with our proper midfield in this game. End of sentence. I know Chera stepped up and played one of his best games for us. Setterfield, it's like, wow, okay, that maybe there's something there with Setterfield, but it's not. You can't deny that we would have won with those 3 guys.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one. Obviously, you'd think you'd be better with 3 of your best 5 midfielders out there, and this is why I think I'm just so negative on it. Is without them, we managed to get in a winnable position. And that's why, and I don't think you're trying to use it as an excuse or anything like that. So I just wanted me to sort of clarify that. But it's just not, because we got in that position to win with the team we had, and we should have won. There's no excuse for losing in that position. Obviously, you get those guys in there. You get Hewitt, who's been one of our bigger leaders this year, I believe. Those high pressure moments we've seemed to go to him and with ball in hand, but we still. And it's the polar things of this game, where how did we get into this position without Walsh, without Hewitt, without Kennedy? We were 4 goals up against Collingwood. That is an unbelievable thing to do.
Yeah,
but we somehow still lost it. It's unfathomable. And I think that if you want to look at a positive, I've been trying to analyze this in my head since the game happened, and in particular, probably the last 2 games. And then, I guess, missing finals. What does that mean for us going forward? I don't know if I have much of a massive conclusion, but I guess I've come to something where, look, if you want the positive, I think the positive in it, I guess, of not making finals is that, which I'm not saying is a good thing. Please just go with me on this, please.
We wish we were playing finals.
Exactly. But if you're going to try and find some silver lining out of not making finals, it's that the last 2 weeks have basically been finals.
Agreed.
They're not, but they're close. They're as close as you can get to it without being in there. Particularly, absolutely do or die against 2 top 8 teams, 2 big contenders. Particularly this game against Collingwood was an elimination final. You had almost 90,000 at the G. The pressure was hot. It was pretty much a final. So I think if you're looking for that positive, the coaches, everyone at this club should hopefully have enough data, and the players would have an experience or as close to it as you possibly could of what a final is. I think that that's your positive. I don't think the difference between that and us playing Brisbane next week in a final would have been that much different as far as pressure and all the data that you need to get out of it. So if you want the positive, there it is. The issue is, and this is the far bigger issue onto this point, is that we failed under this. We failed in both of these finals. When, the bigger games were there to be won, we crumbled. And on top of that, now it's the weight of not making finals. because how much does that weigh up on this group? They've bottled the season.
Yeah.
Not only from the position they were in a month ago, but then 2 times in games, they've bottled it. Like, that's what worries me, because there's that positive data of, yes, okay, this guy can handle the pressure, or this is what we need to get from finals.
Mm-hmm.
But we've struggled under pressure, as we've mentioned this whole podcast, and it's whether they can learn from that or not. And that's going to be the biggest thing, because next year's going to be harder. We're going to have a harder draw. There's going to be more pressure, higher expectation.
Definitely.
And fans aren't going to be satisfied. Like, if we beat Richmond round 1, that means nothing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you almost
That's
got that free pass this year of, we've got Vossi in, new coach, give it a bit of time. Hopefully we make finals. But we could go on the same run. We could be 8-2 or whatever it was this year. And all fans will go, well, I've seen us bottle it from this position.
Yeah.
And so I guess we're really just not going to be satisfied until we see us make finals. And I think I said to you potentially before we started this podcast, like, I don't want round 1. I don't care for the off season as much as I would have been in previous years to go have that mentality of let's improve, let's get us going. I'm not excited for round 1. I'm excited for round 23 at the end of the season where we're making finals next year. Like, it's 12 months away. That's what I think hurts us all the most, is we've got 6 months until round 1. And even then, that's not what we want anymore. It's incredibly just heartbreaking, I think, is how it is.
Oh, I agree with all your points, and I have nothing to add. It's, I feel quite similar. It's funny. It's funny. I felt more optimistic. I don't know. Oh yeah, it's a different kind of optimism. But I remember at the end of last season, we were like, we're excited about all the little things that can happen here and the possibilities. And I'm still looking forward to obviously round 1, and we can. I know you're not saying that you're not going to watch it, but you're right. It just the bar is set higher now, and that's going to change the way that we receive all of this. And I tell you what, if we lose round 1, the walls are going to be on fire. So we can look forward to that.
Yeah, but you kind of nail it. Like, we're in a much better position than we are from last year. We want to be in these kinds of positions where it's the do or die. Let's try and make finals. The hunt for finals. That's what we want to be in. We want to be in these big games compared to what we were last year. But I agree that optimism of, can we turn it around? Look at all this excitement. There was a lot more last year than there is now. And that's just what happens when you lose these close games. And last year was a failure of a year for so many different reasons, on field, off field. And you get that fresh start. And that's where that sort of honeymoon period comes from. And I guess we'll go into more of the failures or successes and whatnot on our review. But you fail again in this season in not making finals, and like that just hurts you, and it's going to be bigger for next year. Probably a bit of a segue into the next bit is talking about the pressure, talking about trying to fix what has gone wrong. The big chat is going to be on leaders or lack thereof on field. It's going to be a big talking point in the off season, pretty much out of this game. Like, got a couple of questions. Who currently in this squad do you think that we actually can turn to in these moments? Like 2 minutes to go, scores are tight. Do we have anyone, whether they played in this game or not, that you'd actually really trust with the ball in hand, that you'd think would be able to galvanize the players, calm everyone down, and just sort things out? Do you think that we have those kind of players?
That is a really good question. And you rattle through the names in your head and you think of the times where they've not allowed you to trust them.
Yeah.
Maybe Wiedering's one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And
but even then, like he hasn't had a great end to the season. And I don't know. I think probably my one's been Hewitt, is someone I don't think is really, I've ever seen him make a big mistake.
Yep.
Maybe Sard, but I guess even then he was one of the key reasons last week in those, if you're looking at key moments of where games turn and stages, that panic kick forward. So is it him? It's the evidence from last week proves it's not. That's an issue that both of us can't really categorically name 5 or 6 blokes that we would back to the top of saying, yes, give the ball in Cripper's hands. Even though he had such a good game this week, you still can't trust him because you've seen him make these mistakes. And that's the frustrating part. So, yeah, do you think that, obviously maybe this is a bit of more of a question for maybe next week, but is that probably one of your biggest things that you're looking for us to try to get into this team, just the on-field leadership? Because I'm not sure if you saw, I think it was First Crack, what David King sort of showed some footage of the back line leading up to the Elliott goal and just maybe the lack of organisation out the back and how we got caught out. And I think that those are little things that you see now and then, just that struggle structurally, that voice. Because you got Cripper, that one of the best games of his life, led from the front with the ball. But do we need to start looking for those voices on the field?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's something. I know there's trade and free agency whispers about those types of guys that could be coming our way. Doesn't excite me as much. I think I have faith that a guy like Cripper, Walshy, like, I think that they can become those voices with time. I think I keep coming. I know maybe that's too optimistic, but this was the biggest game that Cripper's ever played in. And I know that he's proven at times that he can't be that trustworthy guy in those situations and always stand up, even though he often does. I am going to keep the faith and say that with the group that we have, those leaders can still emerge even further than they have, because I'm just not convinced on where that would come from.
And I'd love to look into this more. Try to look at, I guess, all those premiership teams over the last 10 or so years and see if, like, who their leaders kind of learned from. And did they have that premiership experience? Did they have that elite leadership? Because the issue with this squad is there isn't anyone that's really been close to doing it. You've obviously got Vossi there as coach, but on field, when you need that calm head, has anyone learnt off anyone? Like, they've learned off Cade Simpson, they've learned off Mark Murphy. Like, no disrespect to those guys, champion footballers, but them not going to that other sort of echelon of player. Can you truly learn yourself just through experience and time? Or do you need someone? And then I don't have an answer to that. I'm not sure if it's just time.
No, it's a fair question.
To these, and then learning from that exposure to when you've made the wrong decision and then applying it the next time, or whether you do need someone that's been there. I know, like, Luke Bruce is the one that gets thrown around a lot from Carlton supporters as someone makes sense in that forward line in particular. But yeah, I'm just not sure what the correct answer is. But we need something, I tell you.
Do you see that more as Luke Bruce in our, like, him being that person, or just him being on our list would educate and give that faith to others? Like, you're saying you want him to be the guy in the team who's that calm head, or he's going to bring others up?
Well, I think you firstly, you need someone that is playing week to week, or at least for most of the part, comes in best 22, because you need that on-field thing to learn from. I don't know if Luke Bruce is that guy. I don't know if he's that leader on field that can actually talk to people. It's just you go, aging guy. He might be out of contract. I don't know, but I don't know why everyone is thinking he may be available. I haven't looked into it too much, to be honest. Ever since this game, I've sort of shut off everything on football.
Me too.
But whoever it is, we just need to sound out these big leaders and try to find someone that is that talkative style of leadership. Because I think we have enough of these Walshies and Cripps that will go out there and do it with the ball. I think we just need the voice out on the field, because I think that's lost us a couple of games so far. But who knows if they can develop that?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a fair question.
Look, we've talked about a lot of negatives, which obviously the whole game was basically negative. Can you find any little positives at all from this game, whether it was individual performances? Is there anything for you?
Oh, I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, I think a big positive is the third quarter, and you can't just play one quarter of footy, but we like our best footy is so fucking good that if we can find that way to do more of that, then I think that's a big positive. So we could talk about that. I mean, yeah, the individual players is an interesting one as well. It was Williams' first game back, and I liked some of the stuff that he did. Marchie obviously has now gotten through a patch of games, healthy, but touch wood, I think. I've liked what Gov has done since he's come back. Jack Martin as well. A couple of weeks ago, we were kind of like, this is it for him. I don't see him getting in the team, and he showed some. So maybe you could talk about those kind of guys where there was some question marks and a bit more faith now.
No, well, the third quarter was obviously the big shining point of just how we were able to turn it around from me sitting there at halftime in silence, thinking the game was done, thinking they just haven't done it. Yeah. And then that's some of the most joy I've had at the football. And I tell you, it feels good to be in a 90,000 MCG crowd. Just there were a few goals where I was jumping out of my seat and celebrating, but I tell you, there were some goals where I just had to sit down. I made no noise. I just had to take it in because I wanted to have that moment forever of just me seeing this crowd going absolutely nuts. Unfortunately, it's not for anything, which is the disappointing part. But I was impressed by a few individuals and their ability to really step up in these final moments. And that's probably where that data I was talking about is going to come from in finding, okay, we've now had these really big time games.
Yep.
Who is actually stepping up? And a few surprised me. Gov had an unreal game again, like that chase down tackle. I think it was the start of the last quarter.
Yeah, wasn't it awesome?
That's the Gov we love. And then you have Zach Williams coming back after however many weeks out from injury, played one of the best games he's played. He loves playing Collingwood in big time games, doesn't he? Yeah, he was beautiful out there. Chera coming back in, who hasn't been amazing this season. He's been okay in a few games, but with that depleted midfield going in, I think every single person was like, next man up, we need Chera to step up here. And he did. That was probably by far his best game for Carlton.
Yeah, I agree.
If not his best game in his career, to be honest. He was everywhere. He used the ball well. He was hard. He was winning the football. Interesting one with Chera. Do you think we need him? And this is just trying to look for next year, because obviously we've got Doc in there, who I thought, apart from a few moments, was good again into this midfield. Chera's been one that maybe has taken a bit of a backseat to a Hewitt, to a Kennedy in there as those kind of hunting midfielders. Do you think that we need to use Chera and Doherty more in that instance, seeing how well, I guess, they've done in these kind of games?
Oh, it's a great question. Great question. That's already a positive you can take away as well. Just that these injuries have kind of taught us a few different things. It taught us this about Doc and showed this with Ches. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know whether Hewitt is the kind of guy that we'd be playing in other roles. And like Cripps as well. If Doc is going to be getting CBA time, then that means that someone's not in there. I don't know. I'm excited that we'll be able to experiment with these things. Yeah. If that's a fence-sitting answer enough for you.
No, it's got to be interesting to see if. I feel like I always say it, and I always say it to him, but he's been good this season. I'm not saying get rid of him or anything like that, but if a player, because I guess how I would rate the midfielders, it'd be Cripps, Walsh, Hewitt, everyone else. And it'd be interesting to see, because Chera can kind of do a little bit more, whether how him and Doc have gone, whether that pushes Kennedy down the pecking order a little bit or something like that, because these guys can do a little bit more. It's going to be interesting to see the midfield mix, and particularly because maybe some players, Vossi's seen that they don't handle these big moments, that come round one, there might be a few players that have played almost every game for us in this season that are no longer the favourites. They're
Oh,
not
yeah,
sort of
for sure.
relied upon because he goes, no, you're out of this. Those are the
Mhm.
things that are going to interest me going forward.
No doubt.
Look, there was a exciting young forward that hasn't had a lot of experience, but gee, when the moment was there, he took it, and that was young Jesse Motlop. I mean,
How
those
good.
2 goals, absolutely electric. That's got to be some sort of positive going to next season. On the negative side of it, our other 2 smalls didn't have very good games. Durden probably had his worst game for us, even though we really believe there's a lot of talent there. I had to side story on this one. When I was rushing to get out of the MCG, and I get it, we're all disgruntled, we're all unhappy with things, but there was like a couple of people in front of me walking down the stairs, and one of the people were just abusing and talking to their whoever they were with about Durden. And I get it. You're annoyed that he made that mistake. That's fine. But they were going off so they're like, he's useless. That's it. Get rid of him. He can never play for us again. And I just had to say something. I was like, for fuck's sake, he's 19 years old. He's a fucking kid. Like,
Yeah.
the way some people were like crucifying some of these guys, like, yeah, we're not happy with it. It's not good enough. What they did was not good enough. But you can't, like, I don't know, just absolutely nothing behavior from you that just really pissed me off after that game. I know we're all hurting, and that's probably where it came from. But that was disappointing from them. But at least, someone did step up in Jesse Motlop. I guess, what did you make of his game this week?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I agree. He was obviously the standout out of those 3. Definitely not to pile on with Durds, but we were like, is he injured? I genuinely haven't seen him for 20-minute stretches in this game. So yeah, but he's not the only one. But yeah, no, we'll love Jesse. The energy that he had in that 3rd quarter particularly was great. But there isn't really anyone that I'm like, oh yeah, all 4 quarters kind of gave us what you would expect. I'm seeing if there's any other guys that stand out as being those real positives. I mean, yeah, just touching on Marchie again. I mean, I'm again optimistic that Kerno had a couple games back, get that preseason in, and then bang. And I'm not sure. Like you made that point earlier about some of these guys that having staples this season, whether we get to round 1 next year and there's question marks. I think one for me is the Wiedering, Marchbank, McGovern, Young combination. Is all 4 of them our best? But is all 4 of them our best mix for sure? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know for certain, but I think the last 2 weeks that they've played, I thought the backline's held up, particularly those guys.
Totally.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Sard, Williams there when Newman comes back. A guy like a Boyd, whether he's seen in there as well, whether Doc moves back into the back line. We've got a lot of guys. Yeah, Stocker, who I thought was absolutely fine this week and was fine last week as well. So there's a lot of options, but the way Gov played, the way Lewis Young played, and then again Marchbank.
I know.
I can't drop any of those, and I particularly liked Gov and Marchbank's ability to go a bit smaller and still have a really good impact on the game. 2 weeks in a row, I think they've done really well on their direct opponents for long stretches of games. And yeah, Wiedering's the frustrating one. He just, since he's come back from that injury, has not been the Wiedering at all. Would not surprise me if now that the season's done, he's in for surgery for something and that's been it. But hopefully he's one that can get back to his best, because you need him out there playing at his peak. The amount of games that I feel like he won, like that Hawthorn game, you just go back and think about that mark he took, and that was the settler for us. And different moments, we probably needed that on the weekend. On talking about some of those players that stood up, do you find it interesting that the majority of the players who stood up in this game were all our big recruits and not really guys that we've developed? Because, Williams, McGovern, Chera, Sard, Young, all come from other clubs where really there wasn't a lot, I guess you could say, that have been through that Carlton development.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it until now. Yeah, I mean, that's the other kind of thing as I think about this off season, where it's like, do we want to do another, like bring more players in that aren't homegrown, if that's the right word? Like I want to be able to shift that narrative away from us just bringing the guys in, and that's why I want to have faith that we can build that leadership from within. But yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Apart from obviously Cripps being best on ground and Doc being up there.
Unfortunately, if I'm reading into it, that's part of the reason we probably lost this game. That's probably the reason there's a mentality issue in this squad, because apart from Cripps, maybe young Motlop who hasn't spent too much time there, I feel like all the players that struggled and had those moments have been really Carlton the whole time. They've been through this rebuild of being told winning doesn't matter from Bolton. They've then had Teague. Like, they haven't had the on-field leaders. They've lost a lot of games. They haven't learnt to win. And it's probably a bit of a blight on where we are. And we know that that's where the pains come from. And it might be one of the reasons why a lot of these players struggled in these big moments, because this is what has been ingrained in them. And we maybe haven't changed that mentality, because when that pressure's come, we're fumbly. We go away from everything that's worked well for us. Like that last quarter, every single, like 90% of those things that when the ball went into the forward 50, it wasn't looking for good targets. It was just bomb it in and then get the ball and bomb it for the goals. It was not, there was no composure from these guys. Charlie, again, as we've mentioned, takes that mark. No composure. Little things. And these are all guys that have been there through these Carlton journeys. And it was strange that all the ones that seemed to really step up, or at least the majority of them, all came from other clubs. And that's just the growth area that we need to get right. This mentality
totally
has to shift. Not making finals wasn't good enough. Making these mistakes under pressure wasn't good enough. And we've got to, whatever we're doing in this off season, I've heard great shouts of just get every single sports psychologist that you can find in the world, get them in there and fix these guys. Like, it sounds stupid, but like Vossi and the team need to go around and find out what the best elite sports clubs in the world do to teach pressure. Because I think we've kind of mentioned this we're obviously training against ourselves, which is like the dumbest thing to say, but how do you replicate pressure at training? How do you put yourself into these moments and get better and unteach these bad habits? How do you improve if you're only training against you and playing against you in preseason? So we've got to go out there and find out how those elite clubs in any sport do it, and fucking do it, because I don't want to sit here next year and see the same mistakes from the same players week in, week out when the pressure's there. I don't want to be 5 goals up and be shitting myself knowing that we're going to bottle it again. We've had 7 years of rebuild bullshit. Got a couple of years of finals before that. More rebuild bullshit. I don't want it again. I don't want it again.
Mate, you're giving me Essendon president vibes with the just need some data. And what is Geelong doing?
Don't you dare.
What does Collingwood do? I feel like you're suggesting that we need a camp.
Just start playing that Collingwood and Melbourne theme song to them every single day. Get the blacked out bus. It's. But surely you kind of agree with me in the fact that
no, I do.
We need to be going to the best people everywhere and only accepting the best and finding out how they do it. Because isn't that what this review was for in the first place? Was we think that we're doing whatever job we're doing, but we don't know how everyone else is doing it. So I thought we should have got all this data and we should have been changing it. And
but missing out on finals by a hair is very different to no player is enjoying the culture of the club, which is where we were a year ago. So much has changed, and we're not
obviously
perfect,
obviously.
But the review I think did its purpose, which was to completely reset where we are and the people at the top.
It did, but there's still probably some question marks, particularly over, I guess, strength and conditioning, which Vossi was alluding to. Brian Cook mentioned some stuff. So that's going to be an interesting story to play out in the offseason as well. But
that's a good point.
They need to figure out this mental fragility of this team, whatever it is. And because we can't go into another season doing the same things. And like you say, whether that's just heavily reviewing what you're doing and going, like, why did you make this mistake here? Like, you've got the ball here.
Yeah.
Why did you kick it here? What's going on? And then trying to replicate this, and next time you do it, no, you're not passing it there, and drill it into them and finding out how to get the pressure around these players in these game-like scenarios and make sure they're not making those mistakes. Like, that is how we're going to get better, because I guess the positive, like you've said in this podcast, is that third quarter's there. We came from not good footy to the best football you'll ever see and put ourselves in a winnable position. And we seem to be able to do that, like flicking a switch, no matter how we're playing. So it's there. We just need to learn this other part. And it's gonna be a long off season. Is there other things that you want to chat about, I guess, about this game before we maybe move on a little bit?
I reckon we wrap it.
I agree. So let's jump into the votes, because we've got our Navy Blue Corner MVP medal to give out with these votes. Now, it was very tight last week. I'm pretty sure Cripper was a couple of votes behind a Walsh and Adam Sard. Obviously, Walsh doesn't play. You're assuming here that Cripper gets some votes. But does Sardi hold on? I need to hear your votes, and then we'll find out who wins the MVP medal.
The most prestigious medal out there. I've gone one vote to Big Lewis, who I thought was back to that form that we saw from the start of the year. 2 to Big Ches, and then 3 to Patrick Brownlow Cripps.
Ooh, okay. Well, this could be incredibly close. And I know it's a big, prestigious medal because, look, the players were clearly out there. They weren't playing for finals. They were playing to try and get votes in this. And a couple of guys got them. I gave my one to Caleb Marchbank. It was either between him or Young. It probably should go to Young, but all I can remember really from that game, from everything I have repressed, was just that tackle from Marchie. And so that gets a vote. 2 to Chera for standing up in that midfield, and 3 to Paddy Cripps. And I guess with 3 votes going to P. Cripps, he is, of course, the winner of the Navy Blue Corner MVP medal for 2022. As it stands in third place, actually it's tied second place between Sard and Walsh. They both ended up on 41. However, we've decided to give second, maybe controversially, to Sard, because if we went through our votes and he actually had one more 3 vote, so Sardi will sit above Walshy there. And Cripper with 45 votes, 4 clear, wins the MVP medal, which we'll make sure to send to him. We'll do the ceremony. It's going to be a big one. We'll look forward to that. Lockie, hit me with some fan questions for this one.
I'm thinking we do the old rapid fire, if you're feeling that.
I'm happy to do that.
A lot of these are kind of stuff that we've touched on. But let me pick some out. So firstly, on our Navy Blue Corner medal winner, do you reckon Cripps, well, the question is from Blues Corp, does Cripps win the Brownlow with 3 votes in the final round? Firstly, you reckon he got 3 votes? 2, do you reckon he'll win the Brownlow?
I think he got 3 votes. I don't think he gets the Brownlow, unfortunately. Would love him to. I think he might just miss out.
Yep, I'm with you. Matt Floyd, not Carlton related, but who's your tip to win the cup now?
Oh, Melbourne.
No, I don't want to.
It's them or it's them or Geelong. I don't know. I'd like Melbourne more, even though I don't like either.
Yep, Melbourne for me too. Tim Gigantor, not footy related, or maybe it could be. Ooh. Any good podcast suggestions? I spend so much time listening to great Carlton podcasts that I honestly don't know what else I'll listen to. So give us a rec.
Oh, geez. This is a big question, because I'll be honest, this whole season, I've really only been listening to Carlton content. So, look, I'll try and find some good ones. If you're into true crime, Case File is a great podcast. Big shout out to those guys. Absolutely kill it. Look, depending on your niche, if you like the TV show, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the boys there do a podcast where they go through every single episode. They talk about it for 2 seconds and then just chat shit for the rest of it. And it is great content. But I know you're a bit more of that podcast aficionado more than I am. So what do you got for us, Lockie?
Oh, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'm a big no dunks guy. If anyone is an NBA fan, but if you're an NBA fan, you likely listen to them if you like podcasts. And I'll shout out Review as a comedy podcast if you need some laughs after this win.
That's what we like.
After this win, my lord!
Oh no, you've
That's
lost
how
the plot.
I'm being. I genuinely have lost the plot. Yeah, no comment.
Next question, Lockie. I think you just need to move on quickly.
Oh, David Madden. Given the All-Australian nominations, which we could touch on, is this the best Carlton team to not play finals? With obviously our limited 26 years sample size, what do you make of that?
Of my lifetime, probably. It hasn't been long, which probably shows it. I'm sure there was a team throughout the 70s to late 90s that we may have missed out on a year, and I'm pretty sure any of those teams would probably beat it. Because there was that team in, I think it was 77 that did a similar thing to us where they...
Oh, yeah, of course.
We're in like the finals picture every single game except for the last game. And then we ended up going on to win 3 premierships pretty much with that group. So
yeah,
fingers crossed that happens to us. And I know Vossi spoke about it, saying that you got to use this and you got to motivate from this. Let that fire burn. You could see how much it hurt those players. And so I hope it builds them. I hope it really galvanizes this group even more and they go on to such good things. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
Great answer. Love it. And I think this might be a good final question, which will kind of segue us into our kind of season review and looking forward, which will come as the next podcast installment. But from Bronson Marziano, who will be our next rising star? And I want to interpret that as, who are you looking at already as like the next kind of guy on this list that is young and can take that like next step?
First one, because of recency bias, is Jesse Motlop. Seeing what he was able to do in that big moment, kick those goals. I think we need something with our small forwards, which we're definitely going to touch on in season reviews and list management episodes to come. He's probably the first one that sticks out because, I don't know, like, there's still probably room for like a Zach Fisher to keep going. He's obviously had a bit of a breakout year. I'd hope he can keep going further. Marchbank as well, if you can classify him as that rising star, like big early prediction. If he gets a full season next year, he's a good shout for All-Australian, to be honest. Anyone that comes to mind for you, Lockie?
Well, yeah, not in the rising star as being young, but how you feel about Marchbank is I am so bullish on Gov.
True.
To get a proper run at this role, hopefully. Gosh, touch all the wood in your house if to the listeners right now. But just what we saw in the preseason, those first 2 games, and what we've seen since he came back. Oh, just stay healthy and get some continuity in, and I think you can be an elite defender.
No, I agree with that one. Let us know if you listen to this. Who's the next rising star from this club?
It's a great question.
Who is going to take that next step and be a superstar in years to come? Love you to hear that from you guys. But is that all the fan questions you have for me, Lockie?
I reckon that'll do us.
Yeah, look, it's been a tough one from what has been probably one of the best seasons I've seen potentially ever in my short period of time because of the massive highs we've had. So unfortunately ended prematurely. And I think with that, it's funny, like with the off season, normally, regardless of how we've been, which was normally pretty average, you'd finish the season, you'd kind of be excited for bringing in the next guys. Yeah, can't wait for the draft, can't wait for trade period. I'm just not that excited. So hopefully I do get excited because this isn't where it ends for us. It may be where it ends for the players at the moment. But look, as I mentioned, we've got season review that'll come out in a couple of weeks. We've got plenty after that. We'll be doing list analysis. We'll be covering the trade and free agency period to see who comes in there. And then one thing I was super excited about, but I thought I was going to not have to worry about this for another few weeks, is the draft, because this has actually been one of the years I've spent the most time covering this. I've been to games.
Yep.
I've watched so many games throughout the week from all around Australia of this draft crop. And look, I'm not some ridiculous expert, but I'm finally really informed, and I should hopefully know and seen every single player that gets drafted. So I'm really excited to do a bit of coverage in the draft because there's a lot of potential players that Carlton may pick up, and I'm really keen to get stuck into it and see who we may be looking for. So definitely keep your eyes peeled and ears peeled for this podcast, because it doesn't just stop here. Follow us on socials at Navy Blue Corner to stay up to date. If you're on your streaming service, go and subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes. You don't have to search for it. And if you're on YouTube, drop us the like, subscribe as well. And do you have anything, I guess, that you wanted to finish off with saying at all, Lockie?
Oh, I feel like anything that I do might just ignite a fire, and because now I'm starting to feel, a little bit more optimistic as we've done our classic weekly hour of therapy. So all I'll say is that third quarter was amazing, and it just feels good to be able to go to the footy again and expect some kind of positivity, without, not going to games being like, we're probably going to lose this. Maybe they'll surprise us. It's been really nice this year going in pretty much every week being like, I reckon we'll do it this week. And if we do or not, it definitely makes being a footy supporter a lot more enjoyable.
Definitely. It's been better, and hopefully it will continue to. Look, baggers, we're all hurting, but probably the biggest thing this week that I've loved is how everyone seems to have really united and gotten around each other. I've seen so many people checking in on everyone, asking how they are, and that's the best part about doing this is getting to know so many great Carlton supporters out there. So look, stay safe, baggers. We're a big family. We're as united as ever. We will go again. See you guys next time.